Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Mac Story.
All right, everyone. Welcome to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. Thank you for stopping by today and listening in. I got a great guest, somebody I think a lot of, and this gentleman I'm about to introduce you to. What I love about him, his name is Justin Gallaway. But what I love about him is all the stuff that I talk about, motivate and encourage other leaders to do, and I don't care, again, what level the leader is, and I don't even care if they are a formal authority leader. I don't care if they're an entry-level person or a CEO or somewhere in between. I encourage people to go make it happen, and that's what I love about Justin Gallaway is he makes it happen. He don't just read a book or listen to a podcast or watch a video or do whatever and then turn it off and get all pumped up. He actually goes and gets results. So Justin's up in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina area, and welcome to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast, Justin.
Hey, Mac, I appreciate being here. I'm excited about this, and thank you first for the honor and privilege of being able to do this. And I'm looking forward to having a good conversation with you talking about leadership.
You've gotten some great results, man, and that's one reason I want to invite you on here because, I've talked about transformation the first 11 episodes this year. I talked about personal transformation. The whole year is about transformation in general, and then the last 30 episodes of the year is going to be on my Blue Collar Leadership and Culture, the 5 components for building high-performance teams. But I'm putting in 10, 11, or 12 episodes in between with different folks like you who've actually done some stuff. Before we really talk about the stuff you've done, tell me your story. Anybody listening, who's Justin Gallaway? Start whenever you want in your life and tell me your story. Who are you?
Well, I'm kind of like what me and you've talked about before. I'm a blue collar worker. I am in ministry also, so I've kind of got a variety of things that I've been involved with, but my heartbeat has been for 20 plus years now developing people, trying to help people succeed and help them get better. And me and my wife do this kind of like you and Rhea do. We do this together, and we invest in our people in ministry and outside of that, and then at work. And I got turned on leadership growth. Go ahead.
I got to interrupt you 1 second. Miss Whitney's a rock star, too. She ain't been in an interview, but you mentioned your wife, and Miss Whitney's a rock star. So I'm glad you mentioned her there. She is.
And one of the quotes that she gave me a long time ago, and from what I've been around her and what you've heard, she has some amazing stuff she comes up with. But one she gave me a long time ago that I keep going back to constantly is the only difference between an achiever and a procrastinator is a starting point. The only difference between an achiever and a procrastinator is a starting point. And she got me on that one years ago, and I wrote it down, and I keep referring back to it, and I actually have it hanging up in my office at work right now because I got turned on to leadership stuff years ago and started reading on it. But it took me a few years before I realized how to start putting it into play in my life. I read some high-level leadership stuff, and being a simple person, kind of like you, Mac. I'm from Alabama. I'm from a town that's so stinking small you can't even find it on the map. And I started my career in a factory that only had a few people. And straight out of college, I had an associate's degree in electronics. I wanted a normal job where I could do my time and go home and eventually get married and have a family. And I realized that there was more to life than that. And there was more to me than just going through the motions. And I wanted my life to count for something other than just going to job and coming home. And I got hooked up with leadership stuff. I surrendered to preach. I started investing in people's life in the ministry. Got hooked up with some of the John Maxwell stuff. But I kind of floundered with that for years because I didn't really know how to put it into action. And because I don't use a whole lot of 3-letter words, or 3-syllable words, I mean. I don't use a whole lot of 3-letter words either, but, but I use a lot of simple words. I don't use, big compound words and all that. But I read his stuff, and his stuff is amazing, and it's got a lot of depth to it. And when I first read it, I was like, how am I supposed to put that into play? I don't even know what that word is. I'm having to look it up to find it. And I guess it was about 4 years ago now. We've moved around. I'm in Myrtle Beach now, and I'm at a factory, and I'm a frontline leader on the front lines at International Paper. And I am working with a group of guys that are an amazing group of guys, but they're like any group you work with. There's pluses and minuses, there's challenges, obstacles, and all that. And I was trying to figure out how to get better because I was in an environment that I'd never been in before. I was like, okay, I got to make strides because the only way I'm going to survive in this is to be a leader. I don't have the technical knowledge of everybody that's been there 20-plus years, but how am I going to make it in this? And Whitney got a Facebook post one day that somebody had shared that was blue-collar leadership. And she called me at work. She said, I'm fixing to send this to you, and you got to check this out. And actually, at that time, she was home in Alabama seeing family, and I was here.
Okay.
So I read it, and I was like, hold up. I get this. I get this. And she said, we'll reach out to him and see what he says. And I said, okay. So I reached out, and that night, me and you hooked up on the phone, and 4 hours later, we were still talking about leadership stuff. And I was like, I like this. I like this. And then we talked the next night for another 4 hours, and I got the 5-chapter downloads of Blue Collar Leadership, and then Blue Collar Leadership and Supervision. I read the first 5 chapters of Blue Collar Leadership the first night. I read the next 5 chapters the next night, and ordered the books the next day. I was like, okay, I got to have these. That's what I'm talking
about, taking action, right? You took action.
Hey, and I started reading them, and I started seeing that they were making a difference in me and helping me be a better leader. And Charles Schwartz, the one that does the Peanuts cartoons, and I may have stole this out of one of your books, but I wrote it down. He said, life is like a 10-speed bike. Most of us have gears we've never used.
Yeah, that is one of my books.
I'm pretty sure if I look back, I probably stole it out of one of your books because I took your advice on that, and as I was reading through them, I'd highlight, and then I started me a folder, and I started me a spreadsheet, and I started putting all these quotes and stuff in there because I wanted to be able to go back to them quick and easy and dig in and see more about them. And started reading the leadership stuff and started talking to Whitney, and I was calling you, and you've been a great mentor and a friend to me through this. And as I started reading, I was like, okay, I got to be able to do more of this. And I wanted to be able to continue to help my crew grow because they were helping me learn the technical side of the job and where things are at and how things work inside the International Paper or the paper mill. And I wanted to be able to give back to them. Yeah. So I went to my boss, and I told my boss at the time, I said, hey, here's what I'm doing. And he goes, I noticed there were some changes in the way you've been handling some things. I said, I want to buy one of these books for my guys. He goes, do you think these guys are going to do it? And I said, I think they will. I said, or let me put it this way, I'm going to try my best with them. He goes, if it'll help them and you want to do it, go for it. And he said, we'll pay for them. Just put it on your card and I'll approve it. I was like, okay. So I think the first time we bought like 15 books. Yeah. And handed them out to the guys in my crew, and they're like, what are we doing with this? Some of these guys have been there since the early 80s, and they're thinking, why are we fixing to read a book together? You know, we're technical guys. Yeah, that was Blue Collar Leadership, the very first one.
Okay, yep.
And I started going over it with them daily. And I had a guy that just been hired on. He was on his rotations, and he was with my crew for like 6 months. And Kurt came to me one day, and he said, hey, I've been reading this book. And I said, yeah. And he goes, can I take it home with me? I said, absolutely. It's your book to keep. He goes, I want to use this at home because I'm seeing awesome. This stuff, and it's going to help me be a better dad. And I looked at Kurt, and I said, by all means, buddy, take it home with you. And that's awesome. That book, like it was wore out within the first week. Every time I saw it, you could tell he was bending pages down. He was marking stuff in it. And I was like, okay, I don't care if the book helps anybody else. It's good for me from here on. It's won its credit and then some, just because of what it did for me and how it helped him. Yeah. And we were reading through it, going through it with the crew and all that, and there were changes in the crew. There were people in the crew who were reaching out and helping others that used to not, and I was watching people's lives develop, and they were coming together as a crew and holding each other accountable and helping each other. And Chris Hogan said this a while back. He said, a good leader will help someone get better at their job. A great leader will help you get better at life.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
And I'd already, without even knowing that was what me and you had talked about a long time ago. I don't want to help them I don't want to help them. Anybody can help them get better at their basics of their job. I mean, there's SOPs for that. There's standard operating procedures for that. There's procedures for this, procedures for that. But helping them get better at life.
Can you say that quote again, that whole quote?
Chris Hogan. He's with, I knew it'd go blank. He's Dave Ramsey. He's part of the Dave Ramsey team.
Okay.
And he says, a good leader will help someone get better at their job, but a great leader will help you get better at life.
That's good stuff, man. That's why I invited you to be on here today, because that is exactly what you're doing. Anybody who's on this podcast, I don't do a lot of interviews with people, but that's what made me ask you to be on here. So you live in it, Justin.
Well,
so keep on talking, man.
And I appreciate that. And without ever hearing that quote, that's basically what me and you had talked about, and that's what I was trying to do, because I knew technically I had the most technical advanced team in the mill at that time. I had the most seniority in the team in my department in the mill, and I had the guys that knew their stuff backwards and forwards, but I also had one of the most complicated areas to work in. So I wanted to give back to them, and like Chris said, I wanted to help them get better at life. Yeah. And help them get better in all aspects. And it's been amazing to watch them go through that. So we finished that book up, and I called you close to the end. I was like, okay, Mac, we're going through this one. I got momentum going. We can't stop here. And you're like, okay, well, try the teamwork book, see how that goes. I was like, okay, let's do that one. So I pulled out the next book, and they're like, okay, no grumbling, no fussing. Oh, I meant to tell you this. In the middle of that book, I don't remember which chapter it was now, but
in Blue Collar Leadership, the first book you went through?
In Blue Collar Leadership, yep. When I was going through it the first time, I was sitting in my office one day, and I heard one of the guys out there talking about something, and the next thing I know, I look out, and one of the other guys has got the book up, and he's quoting the chapter from that day. Do you remember this? It was the one where it talks about who do you work for? Who do you work for? And he was reminding me, he said, this is our customer out here. If you don't do the right thing, you're hurting our customer, and we're going to all get fired.
Yeah, that's chapter 7, the secret to your success. You get paid by others, but you work for yourself.
And it's been amazing. This has been, 3.5, 4 years ago. There's still people making quotes to that, making reference to that. Hey, this is our customer. Let's take care of our customer. So we go through that book, and then we jump into the teamwork book, and by this time, the rotations come through. Kurt's gone into another crew. I've got a couple other guys in there. They're going through this one with me, and we're talking more about being a teamwork, and we're building a team, and we've got more younger people in the crew now, and the teamwork book fell into place with helping the older one to realize, hey, you need to mentor them. Somebody mentored you. Now you got to mentor them. You got to help build their teamwork. Otherwise, they're not going to be successful in their future, or you wouldn't have been successful in your future. And a couple of the guys told me, he said, you know what, this is kind of like the stuff that we used to do here, not the book, but what it's teaching here. We used to do, basically mentorship here, where you were assigned a guy, and for the next year or 2 years, you taught him everything.
Oh, yeah, like an apprentice.
Exactly. Yeah, an apprentice-type program. And so we're going through the teamwork book, and by this time, Mac, people higher up are seeing the difference in my crew. They're seeing how the investment in them is changing them, and how others are working with them. And then my boss at the time changed to a different position. I got another boss, but the boss I got this last time was actually he wasn't one of my crew members, but he was my reliability engineer at the time.
Okay.
And he saw how it was going on, and he saw the change in it, and he could speak straight to the people higher up and say, yeah, I was there. I watched them go through it. I saw how it was affecting this one's life, and how it changed this one, and how it helped this one. And so then the next thing I know, the bosses are asking me questions about it, and they're asking him questions about it. And then we were able to make the pitch to them. It's like, okay, you saw what it did for this crew. How about let's go bigger? So then we did the 300 book deal with you. And you and Rhea came down and spoke to all the maintenance leadership at the mill, and absolutely
we got to meet all those good folks.
Oh, yeah, you got to meet them all, and y'all knocked it out of the park. I'm telling you what, they still talk about. And you and Rhea, after that meeting, came and met with my crew, and there's still guys in there that talk about when y'all came down and hung out with them for a little bit, and they just absolutely loved it.
That was a pretty cool time, wasn't it, when we came down there? People were really
it was an awesome
engaged. You surprised them. It was a good surprise.
It was a good surprise, but at the same time, and we kind of talked about this in the beginning, and even before we started this, when me and you were talking and Rhea was talking, one of the things that I think struck home with them was the realness. The fact that y'all didn't come in and you didn't try to put on this super polished presentation with your suit and tie on and all this. You came in talking to blue collar people who are out making it work, and that's what's keeping America going right now, is the blue collar workforce with COVID-19 and all this other. And James Allen, I got a quote from James Allen the other day. You're gonna love this. Okay. Circumstances do not determine a man; they reveal him.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Circumstances do not determine a man; they reveal him. And I put those letters up and I put them on our bulletin board right outside our shop. Mm-hmm. So everybody walking past there has to see it every day. And I've reminded my crew about it. I was like, man, with all this stuff going on, it's not going to determine you. It's going to reveal who you are. It's going to reveal your character. It's going to reveal your integrity. It's going to reveal how you're doing things not only to protect yourselves, but your family at home and your work family.
Yeah, man.
So
go ahead. That's good. I was just going to say that was like Blue Collar Bob with a bulletin board. Yep. How Blue Collar Bob got
exactly. Well, funny you mentioned that. I meant to tell you this other day. On one of the other areas, maintenance areas that went through this, I went by their room not long ago, and they've got quotes outside their door now that used to not be there. And I came back by the day, and they had a different quote up there. So this was a blue-collar worker who's decided to start doing Blue Collar Bob, and he's putting quotes up there. And they've not even done the teamwork book yet. They just did Blue Collar Leadership and finished it up right before Christmas.
Tell everybody, so I can do it if you want me to, but I know you know it. So, I mean, you know, it's your time on the show, so I'm going to ask you to do it for me if you don't mind. But people who hadn't read Blue Collar Leadership and Teamwork, 30 Traits of High-Impact Players, tell them who Blue Collar Bob is, because somebody just listening hadn't read it, don't know what we're talking about.
Oh, you got to meet Blue Collar Bob. Blue Collar Bob is our kind of guy. He's on the front lines, digging in, and he's wanting to help make a difference in his life, but also in those around him. So as a quote or something speaks to him, he's putting it up on the board for everybody to see. And as you read into the book, you start noticing that people are looking for it each day. They want to see what kind of words are going to be put up there that day. And those words are meant to encourage, but they're also meant to challenge your way of thinking. And that's what I love about most quotes, is they're not only there to encourage me, but they're also there to challenge. How do I look at this? What am I doing about this? What's the way I need to change to get better at this?
Yeah, you know, that's good.
I love people saying you either get bitter or you get better.
You're exactly want to get better. That's what happens. In that book, Blue Collar Bob started out kind of bitter, but all the way through the book, he continued to get better. So just to make sure, I'll add a little to that I put Blue Collar Bob in that book. It's kind of unique to that book. It's a fictional character that I use to kind of teach a lesson through the other lessons that I teach. So anybody reading that book, they'll see bits and pieces of what Blue Collar Bob's doing as he transforms himself. So thank you for bringing that up about the quote and sharing that. You were right on with Blue Collar Bob. A lot of people like that little character. I may have to put him in some other books.
Well, my crew's asked more than once, you know, when are we going to see a book about Bob? And I was like, well, I don't know when he'll have a book about Bob, but we'll see if we get another book with Bob in it. And he said, okay, if you find one just about Bob, let us know.
Rhea and I have talked about that, and I've talked about writing a fictional book, you know, with a whole book of, literally it will probably be Blue Collar Bob. And I'll have to seed in that story as part of his life story so it makes sense. All right, go ahead.
So, you know, you guys came up, you came to the mill, knocked it out of the park, help encourage people, help build people, and then I had the privilege after that of leading my peers through Blue Collar Leadership Study, and we went through that, and then they
other leaders like you.
Oh yeah, all the frontline leaders, And actually, they wound up having the area maintenance managers in that meeting, and some of the reliability engineers and some of them would sit in on it from time to time. And we all went through it together as a group. We met once a week. They were given 5 chapters, and then we would sit down and just talk about it and go through it. And a couple of them right up front said they realized right off the bat that, to begin with, they took it like everything else. This is something that we're being told we have to do. But as they started looking at it and started reading it, they're like, a couple of them said, you know what, I've been here 20-something years and been in this position for several years now, Lisa, but I'm realizing this is good stuff. This is basic stuff that I need to help me get better as a leader. And, one of them, when we were talking about how there's potential in everybody, he pointed it to the people in the room and said, hey, if it wasn't for these 2 guys seeing potential in me, I wouldn't be a frontline leader now. I'd still be on the, down there on the hourly side doing, whatever, but they saw that I had more potential than that.
That's awesome.
So, and then we carried it to the cruise, and we got a chance to take it to the cruise. And by this time, I had a couple guys. I had like 3 or 4 guys that retired. I had some that moved into other positions. I had some new guys came into the crew, and I decided to do blue collar leadership again and do it with my new crew at the same time as the rest of the meal. And when I told them they were doing it, a couple of my older guys laughed, and one of them pointed to another one and said, I told you didn't learn anything the first go around. So they got a good chuckle out of it. Well,
twice.
Yep. Some of my senior guys, this was their second go around. And so we did it. And the other ones were new, never even knew anything about it. And so we jumped in on it and did it. And then about halfway in it was the next rotation. So some of the guys got to do it with me, the first part, and then finished it up in another area. Some of them started in another area and then didn't finish it up with me. And so we got to go through it together, and it was real good watching them go through it, especially some of these younger guys. And I've got a couple guys in my crew now that are really young, in their early 20s. And, I told them, I said, just think about this. This is not just a one and done for you. If you want to go more, if you want to do more with your life, if you've got all kind of potential in you, this is to encourage you to start a growth process that can last for the rest of your life.
Yep.
And a couple of them, you can tell by the wheels are turning, and I've had a couple of them come do follow-up meetings with me after this and say, okay, I want to be working on this, and I want to work on this. I mean, what do I need to do? So, we're going to get together and help them figure out, what's things that they can do to help them grow and get better in life. So it's been really encouraging going through this and helping them develop and watching them grow and getting a chance to speak to them and encourage them and challenge them every day. And so in the middle of all this, I think it was somewhere about halfway through the first book, going through it the first time. Yeah, first time I went through Blue Collar Leadership, I started putting leadership quotes out of the book on my safety card that I turn in every day. And so I just started putting it on there, started writing it down on there. Well,
what's that safety card?
2 weeks into, we have a safety card that we have to fill out at work every day, where we're stopping and taking thought and taking time to think through our safe steps of our day and our job that we're doing, so that we can cut back on first aids and near misses and things like that.
Okay.
And those safety cards are turned in every day, and they're reviewed by the mill lead team.
Okay.
So the mill manager and everybody on the lead team, they review those every week, and they'll review a different departments each week. And then I was told about 3 or 4 weeks into it that my cards started turning up, and people started looking at them, and they were asking about, what kind of quote did they put on there? What did they think about this one? And I thought, okay, this is kind of stuff we talked about, where you're encouraging leaders up, and you're leading up, but you're doing it by encouraging them and giving them quotes and things to help, challenge them and make them think as well. And
exactly right. Leadership's influence. You can go 360 degrees from wherever you're at, right? That's the story you're telling now.
Exactly. And, I'm not going to say it was an easy journey through every bit of it. There's been challenges. There's been times when people question, why are we doing this and things like that. And, there's been a couple times that, I was dealing with adversity and things in the crew and with the meal. And there's been times on other jobs when I wanted to, just stop leading and stop trying. And I couldn't, because that's not who I am, number one. But number two, I was getting encouragement along the way. And, one of the quotes that Whitney gave me a while back was, failure starts as soon as change is avoided. And I plastered that one in multiple places, and I thought about it on one of my previous jobs. I had an opportunity to be a team lead and to get to move up in a position, and they picked somebody else. And I was told it was because I was too good at my current position that they couldn't put me in that one, because they couldn't take me out of it because they didn't have anybody to fill that one.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, that just was very disheartening, because I was being held back because I was good at something. I was good at this, so you weren't going to let me be a leader. And I was reminded of that thing, if you wait until you get a title to be a leader, you're never going to be a leader.
Yep.
And I thought, okay, so how do I work with that? And that quote came to my mind. I could have taken this as a failure, but I'm going to change. And so what I started trying to do after that was, whoever my team lead was, whatever job I was at, if I wasn't the team lead, no big deal. My job was to encourage the team lead, support the team lead, help him grow and help him get better and stronger, and at the same time use whatever gifts I've got to be a help to them, to support them. And every time it has worked out to my advantage, if you want to say it was an advantage. They made sure I had what I needed. They were there to support me. If I had an issue going on, they made sure I had the support I needed to get it done.
Yeah.
So,
and actually what you're talking about is that Blue Collar Leadership book, even though I wrote it for the entry-level frontline person, is full of the principles that you're actually talking about. You apply. Anybody can apply them, obviously, but that book's full of the stuff that you're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
But
And
you didn't learn it
like
just there. You learned it in a lot of places. But I'm just saying, for anybody listening that hasn't read that book, that little book is full of the nuggets that Justin's talking about.
Oh, yeah, and I can show you a spreadsheet I've got where I've taken those nuggets out left and right as I go through there. And
really?
Oh, yeah. And one guy asked me when we were getting ready to do it the second time, he's like, we've already done it once. Why would you do it again? I said, why not? And he said, what do you mean? I said, because I've grown from what I was the first time. So when I read it this time, it's going to apply to me differently, and I can get more out of it than I did the first time. Yep. And I probably should have highlighted in a different color the second go around to see the things that jumped out.
Oh, yeah.
But there's not much on the pages now that's not highlighted.
I've had a lot of people tell me that.
You get a good book, and to be honest with you, Mac, the first time I talked to you and I read the book, and in the book and Blue Collar Leadership, it says, if you like this book, buy someone else a copy. And I thought, well, what does he mean by that? And to be honest with you, my first thought was, well, he just wants to sell another book.
A lot of people.
And then I read into the chapter more, and when I read into the chapter more, I understood exactly what me and you talked about. Was it's not that you just want to sell another book; it's that you want to be able to go back to this and reference it again and see how much you've gotten better. It's almost like the second time you read it, it's a gauge. I've grown more since I read it the first time. How much more have I? And if the same quotes jump out at you the same, then maybe you need to dig in a little deeper and say, hey, I got to continue growing, because I don't want to get stale.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop growing.
That's a good point. Yep. And one reason I put that in there is really exactly what you're saying. And one of the ways that I say that to people is I tell them I want that book to be a tool and to do exactly what you're saying. Go back and reference it, go back and read it, because we're a different person. When we become a different person, we see things differently. And like you just said, I read a lot of books more than once. Some of them I read a bunch of times, and I still see them different, because I'm different from one year to the next to the next. That's a good point. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, you want to be. You want to be, and I've used this in the ministry for the last several years. We always do these, everybody does these New Year's resolution type deals or whatever, and I just simply ask my group every year around January, I said, okay, you need to sit down and take some time to think, where do I see myself a year from now? Mentally, physically, and spiritually. I said, you need to think about where you want to be, and then think about what steps is it going to take to get there. I said, because if not, you'll get here this time next year, and you're no different than you were, and you wasted a year of growth. And, let's be real, man. I wasted so many years just going through the motions. And I don't want to do that anymore. I've never been a big reader. I've never been a big reader, but I'm trying to help myself and encourage myself. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of videos. And I listen to a lot of things while I'm driving so that I'm not wasting that time. I'm growing and investing in myself. And, I try to remember the quotes and stuff, so as soon as I stop, I can flip my notebook open and write them down real quick and then add them to my spreadsheet so that I don't lose them.
That's awesome, man. For anybody listening, as they've been listening to you kind of tell your story about what you did and how you did it over the last few years. When we first started talking, I remember when you called, somebody listening to you now, you sound like a pro. I mean, you're like a seasoned vet leader. Like, you just a wizard at this stuff. But you learned it by doing it. I mean, you are really, really doing a phenomenal job. And I say that not to impress everyone, and I know you're not telling the story to impress everyone. I want to say the same thing. Is you're trying to inspire them. I'm trying to inspire them. But you are an inspiration because, I mean, you're telling it's just an amazing story that you have. Because the audience doesn't know, but I remember when we first talked, and you wanted leadership in your facility. It wasn't there like you wanted it to be at the level you wanted it to be, and you said, I want to do what you're talking about right now. I just want to help people have a better life, and that's something you wanted to do. And you figured out, how do I go do this right where I'm at with my team, and then it expanded and expanded and expanded, and it's so cool because today you're on a podcast with me telling other people about your story, trying to motivate and inspire them to do the exact same thing. That's just awesome.
Well, like you were saying, to go along with that, when me and you first talked, you're like, okay, well, you can do this and continue to grow, and you were encouraging me to get into it. And then when I started reading it, I called you back and said, man, I really would like to, possibly take this to my crew. And you're like, man, you can do it, And I was sitting there going, really? Well, hold up. You really think I can take this to my crew? And you were like, absolutely, man. I believe in you. You can do it. You got it. And then, Rhea said the same thing when I got to meet her when she came, when y'all were in town, and Whitney had been telling me the whole time, you can do this. And after we did it, started into a few chapters of it, like, hey, we got this. We can do this. And then, the guys started making sure they had their books, and they started giving guys a hard time that forgot their books. And, and I had some starting to volunteer to read. And, then I got a couple of them to start speaking up in the middle of it. And I was like, hey, this is working pretty good. And then when issues would come up amongst the crew, you would hear them referencing the book or referencing something that they had been taught that was helping them work through it. And you're like, this is pretty cool stuff. And, another one of those Whitney quotes, we learn it, then we live it, and now we give it. And I learned it, and I started trying to live it and trying to put it into play. And then I started trying to give it out. And, kind of like you were talking about, and the book talks about it too, when you start studying the leadership stuff and you start presenting leadership stuff, it quickly points out leadership flaws. It points out who's a good leader, who's a bad leader, who needs to work on it. And we're doing it as a meal with all the guys, and I had 2 or 3 guys stop me on multiple occasions and go, man, I don't know why my boss even does this book. And these were guys in different areas. I said, what do you mean? I don't know why he's doing this book. He said, he don't believe none of this stuff. He don't do none of this stuff. And I said, give him a chance. He said, what do you mean give him a chance? I said, because there's not a one of us that does everything in here every moment of every day.
That's some leadership, true.
And we're gonna make mistakes.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I turned it on them. One of those things me and you talked about before was, turn the question around, ask them. I said, do you do everything that we've read so far? Well, I'm not the leader. Well, hold up. Who is a leader? And I said, well, we're not talking about Myrtle. And I said, no. Who is a leader? And he said, well, everybody is. I said, then you're leading somebody. And the guy that walked up with you that may be a junior man is letting you lead him to question why the boss is right or wrong. And he goes, okay, fair enough. I'm like, we're leading at all times. Whether we formal authority or not, we're always leading. It's just, is what we're leading worth somebody following?
That's good stuff. And what you're saying right there, for anybody who's listening, that maybe they just listened and they didn't pick up on it. But what you just told me, before you told me that little story, you talked about them dealing with it on their own, referencing the content or the quotes or thoughts whenever an issue's coming up. And that's what leaders want their team to do. They want them to lead themselves well. And that's what your team started doing. After you started leading them well, they started leading themselves well, and made your job easier, I bet.
Oh yeah, definitely. And watching them put it into play, it encouraged me to start doing more and dig in more. And we had a situation recently where two guys were assigned to do some stuff together, and one was finishing up another job while a younger guy was working on it. And the younger guy came to me and he goes, "I'm done with him. I can't work with him no more. I can't be around him no more." And I was like, "Hold up, you're going to be with him for a month because you're on a month rotation together." And he goes, "You want me to figure out something?" I said, "You need to go eat, and then afterwards, me and you'll sit down and talk once you had a chance to cool down a little bit." And I said, "Then we'll figure out what the plan is." I said, "But you can't just walk in here and say, 'I'm done with him. I'm not doing this no more.'" And so he went and sat down and ate. I had a chance to get my game plan together. And he came back into the office after that, and he said, "All right." He said, "Look," I said, "Okay, tell me what happened, what went on, and let's talk about it." So he told me what he had planned on doing, and the other guy said, "Do it this way," and then he started it. And, I told him, I said, "Okay, look, a couple things are going on. You don't know his mindset because he's trying to finish up another job before he goes on vacation tomorrow." He goes, "All right." And he didn't know your mindset because you feel like you can handle this. I said, "Now, how are y'all going to work this together? Because y'all have got to figure out how to work this together." And he goes, "I don't know." I said, "Well, let's walk down there and look at it." So we walked down there and looked at the job together, and we're talking it through, and it was like one of those aha moments. All of a sudden, he looked at me and goes, "I get what you're saying. I just need to give him a chance to talk about how he thought it needed to be done, and then let's figure out how we can work it together as a team to make it work for both of us." I said, "Exactly." And he said, "Okay, I got you now." So I leave him there and go back up to the office. Well, the first guy, who didn't know that I had had discussions with the second one, he comes to me later and he goes, "Hey, so-and-so came to me and apologized a while ago." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "He came and apologized to me for how he talked to me earlier and how upset he got with me." I said,
"Wow,
that's pretty cool." He looked at me and goes, "You talked to him, didn't you?" I said, "Well,
but you didn't tell him
yes,
to do that.
I did. I did, but I didn't tell him to apologize. I told him to think about what went on, what was going on, and how y'all could make it work together because y'all were together for a month." And he goes, "I appreciate that." And then the second guy came to me without knowing the first guy had just told me that. He came in later. He goes, "Hey, I just want you to know," he said, "I apologize to him." He said, "I handled it wrong. I did it wrong." And he said, "You know what?" He said, I'm glad I did talk to you because to begin with, I didn't want to talk to you. I didn't want to change. I didn't want to change." And he said, "But you know what? I'm glad I listened." So
that's a powerful story because you as a leader helped them lead themselves well. They did lead themselves well. Then they come back, shared with you, and the overall team gets better. Because when people are willing to work together without the junk, I call it just junk, without all that junk that's going on out there, life's better. It's better at work. They go home better because they had a better day at work, and life gets better.
Exactly. And I keep reminding myself when we're going through stuff is, what John Maxwell teach us, everything rises and falls on leadership. And if I want my crew to succeed, if I want them to get better, I've got to get better. And the more I dig into leadership, the more I realize and the more I'm reminded of, the saying, you can't give what you don't have.
Yep.
I couldn't give them leadership stuff until I started developing myself. And, I was always trying to help and do things for others, which I should do. But if I'm not developing myself, I can't develop anybody else because I don't have anything to give them.
That's
and
exactly
the Blue
right.
Collar Leadership and the Blue Collar Teamwork book has helped me out so much. And then, the Blue Collar Culture book has just, reading through it and going over it and thinking about, because unfortunately I was a little out of the process here. Me and you met and I got the Blue Collar Leadership and then the Teamwork, and then you had the opportunity to write the Culture book. And we were talking about it, and you're like, hey, this is kind of the journey you've gone through. And as I read it, it's like, you know what? You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And the transformation equation that's in there, man, that thing's powerful. It is powerful. And I've shared it with my boss 2 or 3 times, like, do you see which? And he's like, yeah, we're missing these in a couple places. I said, you see the results? He goes, dude, he said, that thing's straight up. I was like, it's true.
Everybody says that
if you're
about
missing
that.
one part of it, you're going to get that result.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome, man. So Go ahead.
It's been an amazing journey going through all this, and unfortunately, it's one of those things. When I say unfortunately, it's one of those things that once I get talking about it, I get excited about it because I know what it's done for me and how it's helped me change and helped me get better, which has in turn helped those that work with me get better. Now, my wife keeps telling me that I, keep working, and that's a good thing because she's there to constantly encourage me and keep me motivated to keep moving forward and keep getting better. And don't get stale. Don't get stale. Don't just say, okay, well, I've arrived at a good enough level, and what is a good enough level? If you think about it, what is a good enough level? Is there ever a good enough level where you can say, I'm done, I've learned all there is, and it's time to stop growing?
Not relative to this stuff.
Well, I think it's that way in life in general. And one of my life mottos is you stop living when you stop learning.
You just wait and die then, huh?
Yeah. Well, when you do that, you get stuck in a rut. And as one of my mentors years ago, one of my pastor mentors told me a long time ago, he said, a rut is just a grave with both ends kicked out of it. If you get stuck in a rut, there's no happiness, there's no joy, there's no challenge, there's no excitement. You're just going by the seat of your pants, just flying through, just rolling through the day, and there's nothing that's going to push you to get better or push you to get stronger or, keep you wanting to go move forward, go for that next challenge.
Yep. That's awesome, man. I just keep going back to the first time you called. You had so many questions, and what's awesome about today, you got so many answers. I mean, you can help so many people. This podcast is going to help so many people. I mean, it's just amazing to have seen you grow this much, and you delivered, man. I'm really glad I invited you to get on, and you wanted to agree to do it and step up and make it happen. Some people ask me, and I think you'll know the answer to this, but some people ask me sometimes, will this stuff work in a union plant?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm in one and had no issues with anybody in the union about doing any of this.
Okay. And so some of the people you're talking about are union members, I guess. I don't know a whole lot about a union. I ain't never worked in a union plant, so I just know I get asked that question a lot.
Well, we have multiples inside my current location, and not a one has, from what I've been told, even when we did it mill-wide, not a one had a problem with it. And I think when we start looking into it, we're investing in people's lives, and it's not just that we're investing in their at work life, we're investing in their life as a whole when you try to develop people.
Yeah. I don't know why anybody would care if you're trying to help somebody have a better life. And that's what real leadership development stuff is. All of my books, you've been mentioning John Maxwell, all of his books, anybody who knows how to really write and talk and teach real leadership, it's all it is about helping people have a better life. So it shouldn't matter if it's a union plant, non-union plant, at home, at church, wherever you're at.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's about investing in others. And it's about helping others succeed and get better. And as you do that, you're naturally going to be pushed to get better yourself. So it's going to be, it's going to be a win-win because you're getting better by helping somebody else get better and continuing to grow and challenge. And, the opportunities are just amazing when you start investing and pouring into other people's lives.
Yeah, that's awesome. And we got about 3, 4, 5 minutes maybe. You touched on this earlier, but now that you've kind of shared pretty much most of your story, I just want to ask you to re-emphasize it because people ask me this a lot too. They're like, well, they don't ask me, they actually tell me. These people on the front lines in the blue-collar workforce, they don't want to read any books. They're not going to read these books if I get these books. So touch on that again. You touched on it the whole way through, but
well, like I said, I'm a simple person. I don't. So I've been accused of having a switch in my butt. When I sit down, I hit that switch, I go to sleep. So if I read more than 3 or 4 pages in a book and I'm still awake, it's got to be a good book. And the way blue collar leadership is designed, and I hear you laughing there because I don't know. We talked about it when we were all sitting down to supper that time. I had to constantly be fidgeting and moving because,
Yep.
I'm used to being up and going, and that's the way blue collar people are. We're used to being up and going and doing, and the books, the blue collar leadership series and books, 3 pages per chapter. You laid them out with us in mind. I can read 3 pages and be wide awake and getting something out of it. We did those with my crew. It took 5 minutes to read the three pages.
Yeah.
And I did them. We read them to the crew. I read some other guys would read, and it's spot on. But then you've also got you've got it on YouTube. You've got it on you've got the different multiple different multimedia platforms for people to be able to listen to them. The audiobooks and all that. So there's many ways to get it. I think the biggest thing is get it.
Yeah.
Just get it.
Yep.
Don't, and that was my issue years ago because I was trying to read leadership stuff where one chapter would be 30 pages. And,
yeah.
I was getting bogged down before I even halfway got into it. I was like, okay, this is good stuff. There's so much here that I'm not ready for this yet.
Had a lot of the 3-syllable words in there too, probably.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those you read with Webster's dictionary sitting right next to you. It's like, okay, what does that mean? And then you read it and go, okay, now I got to look this word up that's in the definition of this one because I didn't get that one or that one.
Yep. So tell me this, Justin, and I know the answer, but I just want to hear you tell it because it's just going to be awesome to hear you say it and for you to reflect on it. But, you called me back 3-4 years ago and you don't know how do I do it. I mean, you've done it. You slayed the dragon. I mean, they know no better way that you can do it than what you've described, and I know all the details of it. I know what you've done. How easy would it be to do it again? I
tell you what, I would encourage the opportunity to do it again. I would look forward to the opportunity to do it again.
You got it all figured out.
No, I don't have it all figured out, but I know after doing it the first time and the success that I saw and the investment in others that it's worth the challenge to do it again. Every team's different. Every team has their different takes on things, but after seeing how it worked the first time, it made me want to jump in and do it again.
Yep, and I don't know what the future holds for you. I don't know if you're going to get promoted like 15 times where you're at, or you're going to move somewhere else, or you're going to be, you're going to be well qualified. You already are to do what I'm doing. I don't know what the future holds for you, but you're going to get the chance to do it again a bunch of times with a bunch of green crews, and you're just going to be polished and ready to go, man. It's going to be fun. You got anything before we wrap up? You got anything that you just want to leave with everyone, or any more of your story you want to share?
I think the only thing is don't be afraid to start. Don't be afraid to start. Like that quote in the very beginning that Whitney had, failure starts as soon as change is avoided, don't be afraid to start. And, difference between procrastination and success is a start. So, well, I'm going to quote one of my buddies, my mentors, make it happen. Make it happen.
Make it happen. That's what you're telling. Yeah, you reminded me of a quote. It's in one of my books, probably in several of my books. It's so good, but I'm going to share it before we close out because it fits with what you just said, and you'll remember it when I say it, but it goes right in line with what you were just talking about, and it's from Karen Lamb, and she says, a year from now, you'll wish you had started today.
Yep.
And that applies to a lot of things in life. That's just a principle. But, Justin, I really, really, really appreciate you being on the show, man, and sharing your story and your journey and motivating and inspiring other folks to do it. As a young man, by the time your episode comes out, which will be on May 22nd, there's a young man his episode's coming out on April 24th. So by the time people hear this, it's already out there. It'll be a few episodes back. But his name is George Estioko, and he's actually in the oil fields out in Bakersfield, California. He works like a little 2-3 man crew, and he discovered my stuff, started listening, and he called me when we were in Boston a few weeks back, and he reminded me a lot of you, Justin, and he's just doing it. They just ordered, actually. He got one of their leaders there just 2 days ago ordered 30 blue collar leadership books, and
Awesome.
George is actually going to be starting trying to lead book studies pretty much as a frontline person. See if he can move it up. They told him, if he could get some buy-in there, that they might do the 200 book deal and get me out there. So George is starting his journey. So you may want to listen to George's. I had him actually on the podcast because I wanted to talk to him while he was just starting out. So I did an interview with him, and it'll be out there to listen to on
That's awesome.
April 24th. So thank you very much for taking your time, Justin.
Man, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do this, and I can't wait to hear the podcast when it comes out, and looking forward to hearing George's before that.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. So thank you very much, and thank everyone for stopping by and listening today. And is there any way, Justin, if somebody wanted to reach you, or social media or email, or you don't have to, I'm just saying if anybody wanted to reach you, would you like to share anything about that?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn and I'm on Facebook both, or they can email me, Justin, Justin, Gallaway, Gallaway, and my email is justinsgalloway@gmail.com.
All right. So anybody who wants to reach out to Justin, I know Justin's a good guy. He'll talk to you one-on-one just like I talk to him one-on-one quite often. I consider Justin a friend these days, and I tell people, anybody who I talk to, like I did you, Justin, anybody who will return me some ROI, return on the investment, all they got to do is get results, and they get to talk to me some more. And we do enough of it, we actually become friends like you and I have. And we don't see each other a lot, but we talk from time to time. And anybody who's a go-getter making it happen, they on the team, I promise you. So thanks again for being here. And
thank you very much, man. Appreciate it.
Yep. All right, everyone. Have a great day. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen, or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.